Okay, we are going to get started. Welcome, everybody. I'm Amy O'Hara, the president of AppDo, the Association of Public Data Users, and welcome you to our December webinar. We are delighted today to have Stephen Hardy with us. He is the CEO of mySidewalk, responsible for providing their strategic vision and making sure that anyone can find value with data. In 2016, he spearheaded mySidewalk's participation in the Opportunity Project, which is a White House initiative promoting accessible data for everybody. In these webinars, we usually keep it fairly loose. And if Stephen's okay, if you have questions throughout the webinar, please raise hand and we'll flag for him that you have a question. Also, feel free to put your comments and questions in the chat, and we're going to save some time at the end for Q&A. But Stephen, thank you for joining us, and I turn it over to you.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Amy. It's a pleasure to be here. Great to be with everybody. As Amy was saying, yeah, please do. I don't want this to just be me talking to myself here for the entire time. So please do ask questions you have them, or pop the question in the chat, or whatever is best. I'm gonna share my screen here. And can you see that all right? Amy, does that look good?
That looks great.
Okay, fantastic. All right, we'll dive right in. So just a little tiny bit of context about who we are and our business. As Amy was saying, my name is Stephen Hardy. I am a city planner by training, and I did that for almost a decade. And I did quite a bit of disaster recovery work in my time as a city planner all over the country. And in particular, it was that time that really brought me face to face with how we make these kind of generational community development investment decisions, and the processes and the data that we had or did not have that helped shape that. So that time was really fundamental for me, just and the way I see the world and the problems that we've been trying to solve. So since that time, I've kind of turned technologist. I am the CEO of mySidewalk. We are a smallish technology company headquartered in Kansas City, of all places, but we've got people scattered to the winds. We like to think about our mission being to just democratize the ability to use data, make sure that more communities and people who work kind of at the community scale are able to have access to the types of data that they need to do a better job of making those kind of long-term investments. The agenda for today, I'm just going to plan on doing like a 6 or 7 minute demo of kind of the things that we've built that led us up to this point. And then we're going to save the majority of the time talking about some of the new tools that we've built in the last year. I'll talk to you about a couple of the lessons that we've learned in using AI on things like open data. You probably have good questions from that as well. And then we can just kind of wrap with a couple of takeaways that I've got queued up. So anyway, we work, I was mentioning we work probably about 60% of our customers are state and local governments. The other 40% are all sorts of different agencies that either work at the community scale or nonprofits or higher education institutions of all different stripes. In typical fashion, they all though are asking kind of the same kinds of questions. It's like, we have some kind of problem that we're trying to solve. It's a place-based problem. We're trying to figure out how can we assess what the problem is, how can we make a smart decision about how we might invest in change and making a change, and then how do we track our progress towards that. And the challenge for everybody has always been, and this is something that you all know really, really well, it's just very hard to find the right data when I need it and then to know what to do with it. And in particular, a lot of the customers that we have aren't folks that have large data science teams. They may be working with a university research partner from time to time, but a lot of times there's like a data person on staff or a couple of data people. And so they're really strapped for time to do all of the work required to do a complete data story. So as a platform, what we've really been focused on trying to do is to create access to the best data possible about places, make it really, really easy to communicate about that data, and then be able to build these kind of powerful data stories that can be shared with anybody that you'd like to share them with. So we've got a whole bunch of these data web pages live all across the country. There are some that are really sophisticated, like this one that we built with the San Francisco Metro Transit that maps their traffic incident management work and the cost of traffic incidents in the Bay region and things that are much simpler than that also. But they do kind of boil down to helping make decisions about where to prioritize either more research or some other kind of investment. Just one really fun story. We get to work with a really cool team at Kaboom. For those Parks and Rec fans on the call, you might remember Kaboom from their star appearance on there. But they are a playground manufacturer. But they also have a nonprofit and research arm. And so they've built this very cool place space and equity data set. And it's a great use case of how people are using kind of open data, applying their own lens to it to create an index that then they go and take and use to make all sorts of investment decisions in their communities. So I thought if you'll come along with me here, I would do a quick demo of our existing platform before we jump into the AI assistant. So if you're looking at the homepage of mySidewalk right now, I'm going to show you how you go about finding data. So I've jumped into this search experience. You'll see I've got Kansas City, Missouri, highlighted as my region. I could select anywhere, but that's where we're going to look today. I've got some data queued up already, but I'm going to add to it. One thing that you'll notice right away, and this is the best view of what our data library looks like. You can go through and search it by source, or you could search it by topic, or you could search it by time, or you could just search it by keyword. So let's just say we were doing some kind of population health research, and we want to look at a few data sets in Kansas City. I started typing asthma, and so I get this asthma among adults data set from the CDC. Maybe I want that life expectancy data set that's getting a little outdated at this point, but still a really cool one. So I'm going to grab that life expectancy data as well. Maybe I'm doing some affordable housing research. So I'm going to grab this HUD subsidized housing units, and then maybe I'm also interested in maybe some like hazard mitigation planning or some resiliency planning. I'm trying to think about my at-risk populations for heat events. So I'm going to grab this residential properties without air conditioning. So I've grabbed these disparate data sets. You see that we're looking at these for the census tracts in Kansas City. We've got the data sets across the top. We do some like outlier identification on it. So you can see like this census tract in particular is one where there is a high concentration of people without air conditioning. The really cool thing is for our customers, this is an ACS data set. These are ACS. This is a CDC data set. That's that life expectancy data set. This is a HUD data set, and this is from a national parcel data layer. So you don't have to go through and find the different data from different sources. It's all in one unified search, which saves a lot of time, obviously. The other really cool thing is we put a lot of time and energy into collecting the right metadata, and we'll talk about how important this is for using AI tools here in a second. But it means that you could do something like, okay, I have the number of people below poverty, and I want this as a percentage. Well, because of the way that we store the metadata, you could come in and normalize it by the right denominator. So we could normalize it by population for whom poverty status is determined, and that'll give us the appropriate normalized value on that particular data set. So on all this stuff, you can map it really quickly. You could look at trends on it. You could look at the distributions. You can we run a quick correlation on them. So like just as an example, this is a spatial correlation. You can see a pretty high inverse relationship between asthma and household income. Life expectancy is kind of in that same kind of category. So it's a nice way to just look at a whole bunch of data and start to tease apart some trends in there. So that's how you find data. Then if you're wanting to do some kind of storytelling around it, you might jump over to the storytelling part of the platform. We've got a whole bunch of report templates already built for people. So I'm gonna just kind of stick on the social determinants theme right now and grab this social determinants template. All this is going to do is build a data story that anybody could come in and edit off of the data that we've already got collected. And this is for the state of Maine, but you could change this to be any geography. I just wanted to give you a sense of how you go from finding those individual data sets to building out a report. These things are just, you could add a little bit of, you can edit them, you could delete a map, you could insert a map. And then these individual reports roll up to create these larger data websites. This is one that's live on the web right now for the state of Louisiana. This is their community health assessment. And so this is sharing some community data, social determinants data for the state as a whole. And then you can, of course, come in and dive into any of the health regions in the state. So we're digging in here on foundations of community health in Louisiana for their first region, mapping out like the enrolled in preschool data as an example. So anyway, I just wanted to give you a sense of how all that stuff exists. Those are the kinds of things that we've been working on for almost a decade, really. And it felt like, we were making good progress, but the problem that we were facing is one that is kind of core to the audience that we're trying to serve, which is just how can we make this stuff even easier to work with? So like there's still some barrier in learning a new platform, even though we feel like we've made that much easier. How could we even take that barrier from like a little bit to almost nothing? And so a year and a half ago when people started using large language models to do some of that analysis, we're like, that really feels like a path that could help our customers navigate this wide world of gnarly data in a much simpler, much faster kind of way. And so that's what we've been building for the last little over a year now, is a host of AI powered tools that help people do work that used to take, something like 90 minutes in just about 20 seconds. So I'm going to show you a couple examples of what Sidekick's doing today, and then we'll dig into just some questions that you might have and some ideas about how using these tools are gonna change in the future. So just to kick us off here, I'm gonna have Catherine. I think actually the Belmont team is maybe a member of yours. I thought I saw maybe Tommy's even on the call. I'm not sure, but they're fantastic. We love Belmont. They're an incredible partner of ours. One of the things that I love about their story, and it's a pattern that we're starting to see in a couple of places around the country, and that is universities and nonprofits taking on more of a leadership role as it relates to becoming like a data hub for the region. And so the Belmont team does that in spades, because not only are they doing it in like a providing the data kind of way, but in a hands-on, like how do you actually use this stuff? How do you think about it even as an economic development or a career development tool? And so I'm going to have Catherine. This is Catherine. Back when we were first building Sidekick, Catherine was one of the first people who got to try it out. So I'm going to, and we recorded a little bit of it. So I'm going to have Catherine show you a version of Sidekick from about 6 months ago.
Oh.
Oh, I didn't share my sound, did I? Hold on, I got to stop and then share my sound. Hold on, I know how to do this. Oops. Come on, let me exit. There we go. Sorry, team. All right. Should be back and you should be able to hear this.
Oh, look at
Cool.
Oh my gosh, look at that. I'm Catherine Bass. I'm the director of the Belmont Data Collaborative. We really work a lot with our communities and how we can take data and help use that for good, help them advocate for themselves. I thought we could look at a little bit of hypertension data today related to health disparities. So that's a good place to start. What data do you have on health disparity related to hypertension? I'm going to put that in there. And I'm going to put Nashville, Tennessee. Oh, look at
Cool.
Oh my gosh, look at that. This
Catherine,
is,
have you ever created a map before?
can I just say, we put a report together on hypertension in Nashville and and paid somebody to do a lot of work to put the map together that looks like a color scheme and everything, almost identical to that. Is wild. Oh my goodness. So can I say, summarize
Yeah.
the data for me?
Yeah.
This is so great.
It's great.
Minimum, maximum, 51.3%.
All right, and you were talking about health disparities in particular. So why don't you ask it to create a ranked chart of the data?
Yeah. This
There you
is,
go on one end.
look at that. That is so cool. And I got the table of the data too.
Yep.
That is so great. Look at that. I love it. I love it so much. Is this
Perfect.
export it right here?
Yeah, then that'll export that. You can export the data as a CSV or a PDF or a PNG.
That
You
is
can drop
so
it.
great. I love
Yeah.
it. Very cool. Very, very cool.
Catherine was fantastic because she just knew how to navigate the whole thing, which was a really a great thing to see, and such a I don't know, her enthusiasm for it really actually was help propel us forward in the months between when Sidekick wasn't always doing what it was supposed to do. So Sidekick is the name of the AI assistant that we built that goes alongside the platform that I showed you earlier. Its whole purpose is to allow people to use natural language to interact with our entire data library and to use generative AI to create maps, graphs, all of the visualizations that our platform can create today, except being able to use their own language to do that. And I do have to say, there's just something nice about the idea about, if for a company that's so focused on data storytelling, to have people be able to use their own language to interact with technology is a cool idea. And for a lot of our customers, I think the hope is that they get to think more like themselves to interact with technology than thinking like the platform or having to remember which button to push. So I'm going to take you through one more recorded demo, and then we're going to go live with this thing, which is always a little bit dangerous. I built this presentation. We got invited to do like an AI and open data panel with the Department of Commerce team here a couple of months ago. And so this was a demo that I was using with them. I'm going to speed it up just a little bit. So in this particular case, I'm a transportation planner, perhaps, and I'm applying for a Reconnecting Communities grant from the Department of Transportation. So I'm just asking Sidekick, what data should I use in my application? Sidekick searches our entire data library. It comes back and it says, okay, here's some topics that are important for a grant like that one. You can see there's community impact data, there's economic data, there's environmental and health data. It says something here about air quality. So I say, okay, Sidekick, what air quality data do you have access to? It's using its search tool again. It comes back and says, okay, here's some data on particulate matters. Here's some ozone data. Here's some respiratory hazard data. And then I can say to Sidekick, okay, just create a map of number 4 for me for Wyandotte County. And then I can say at the most granular level available. And Sidekick will search the metadata for all these things. And then in a second here, come back and create that map. So now we're looking at the block group map of Wyandotte County, Kansas for that respiratory hazard environmental justice index data. Again, you could, right from here, you could download it. You could save that visual somewhere else. but I'm going to ask it to change geographies. I'm going to say, okay, can you show me this by neighborhood instead of by block group? And because of all of the data that we've got built already, that's an easy thing for Sidekick to do. It can create that map at any of the granularities that we support. I can ask it to rank these, if I'm really looking at like, what are the disparities? What are the between neighborhoods? And so Sidekick created this quick little bar chart showing that the Northeast neighborhood has the highest respiratory hazard according to this EPA EJ screen data. So then finally, I'm like, okay, great. Can you create a summary of this? And I want to put it in the beginning of my grant application. And Sidekick can read the data, come back to you with some context. Obviously, you want to check all this stuff, but it does a really good job here of pulling out, in this case, the names of the neighborhoods, grabbing the indice data, and making a couple of recommendations about where you might want to make an intervention. I said, can you compare this to another county? And Sidekick, oh, sorry, that's the end of the video. Sidekick does that really quickly and shows you that the respiratory hazard data is the index is much higher in Wyandotte County than it is in Johnson County. So, the grant application process is one use case that we're pretty excited about. It's just really heavy for a lot of nonprofits and local governments. This is one thing that we think could really help in that. But I guess ideally, you're seeing that this is a pretty fluid tool that shows a lot of promise as it relates to being able to use all of the open data that's out there in a format that more people can access. So let me see. I am going to show you. I'm going to do this live now. All right. So also, just so you know, we're leading up to. I'm going to invite you to try out Sidekick. If there are things you already want to ask, you can be taking notes, and I'll give you access to that in just a minute here. So I'm going to ask. I did this already. All right. So I'm going to ask Sidekick, where in Kansas City should we focus our lead remediation work? We just had a community in Nebraska actually win $1.3 million for a lead remediation grant by using Sidekick to help it do that grant application. So I've asked it a really broad question about the city. It says that it gives you its plan. That's one of the things that Sidekick does now. It says, okay, I'm going to search for data. I'm going to retrieve the geographies, and I'm going to try to map that out for you. So it's kind of working here on all this stuff. You can see, okay, so it's kind of come back. It said, okay, we're looking at Kansas City. There are multiples of these. I grabbed Kansas City, Missouri. We could ask it for any of these other ones. And it mapped this lead paint environmental justice index for Kansas City. So it's another one of those index scores. And then let me see here, but there are several, Sidekick called out a couple of data sets that are of interest. There was that environmental justice index. That's what it went ahead and already built the map for that without me even having to ask for it. It's also got information about homes that were built prior to 1979. So let's say, can you create a map of those homes built before 1979? Well, it's thinking about that. The other thing that you can do on all these is show work. And so it'll actually show you the data topics that it searched our library for. This is a good way to just make sure that the geography it grabbed is the right one. Turns out there are like, as you know, there are like 19 Springfields. So occasionally it grabs the one that you didn't intend. So I've asked for that map of homes built before 1979. Sidekick's mapped all these out. It's already done some summary statistics about the neighborhoods that those homes are in. You can go right from here to either playing with the data or, you could same kind of thing. You could say, can you summarize this for my grant application? Obviously, the more context that you give it, the better it does. But, you know, I'd say for the most part, it's a pretty powerful tool that's getting better all the time. And it's something that we've seen have a lot of success in our customer base. Like consistently, more and more people are using the platform, and the active use on it looks really good too. So I have some more, just a little bit more content on like where we're headed next as a company. What are the problems that we're trying to solve? But maybe I'll take a breath and just see if there are already some questions that are out there that I could address before we keep going.
Hello. I want to say it's very, very impressive. I'm very impressed by this demonstration. My name is Hian Lee. I'm the Director of Data Operations for the Kinder Institute for Urban Research. It's part of Rice University in Houston. Yeah, I'm very, very impressed. I'm curious, first of all, I have two questions. First of all, which large language model are you using behind this? And how confident are we that the text provided by the AI is reliable?
So good questions. We're using the OpenAI API. It was the first one to really be productized, and so honestly, that's the reason we went that way. We keep testing. You know, we've been trying to build the thing to work with any LLM. We keep testing the different iterations. It's still, in our minds, the tool calls that it supports are still best in class. And so just again, for somebody who's building a product on top of it, it's still our favorite. We have a whole, just like when it comes to bias and trust, it's a huge, it's a huge factor for all of our customers. And so we've built a whole series of evaluations that we run on every new deploy. And so we're constantly testing the accuracy and the trustworthiness of the response. We've gotten it to be very, very accurate at using our data and not making up facts. We've gotten it to be good at doing that. But it will still make sweeping generalizations about, like if it's on a research topic or like these grant questions, an example, it infers a lot based on the language model that it's using. So I don't know. We haven't run into any like real problems. It's more like, yeah, that was kind of a crappy answer. We try again. But it is something that we're consistently testing against. So I guess I would just say the instructions from us to it are don't use any outside facts, only use the data from our library. Here are the tools that you can call in order to use the data from our library. We'll serve you back that data and then you can summarize it. That's what the instructions are to it. Doesn't always stop it from expressing an opinion. But I would say for the most part, we feel pretty good about its performance right now, and we've put very tight guardrails around it. But last thing I'd say, and then I'll shut up, is just like we've had to build new products just to test and evaluate the prompts and the responses, because that kind of stuff doesn't really exist out there in a way that works, especially for geographic data like this.
Okay, thank you very much. I may have other questions, but other people in the chat are asking, so I'm gonna wait my turn.
All right, so let me see. Can you add your own data? Scott, that is a fantastic question, and it's actually a really good transition to where I'm going next. Yes, yeah, you can already add your own data into our platform. Does it work with Sidekick is the question, and the answer to that right now is no. The answer to that in 3 months is going to be yes. The way that Sidekick works, we've come up with a structure for every data set that we have in our library. We keep track of where it is, we keep track of when it is, and we keep track of what it's good for. So we like to say that we enrich every piece of data with time, place, and topic. That enrichment process is something that we're bringing to our customers' data as well, so that you'd be able to ask your own data the same kind of questions you're asking ours, and you could say, okay, I have some data on, like we've got food banks as an example, and I know how many people are coming to them, and I know what the service area is on it, and I want to know from October of 2 years ago to right now, how has that changed? And then tell me in the service area, like also how have the number of people that are receiving SNAP benefits changed, which is a data set that we have. And Sidekick will be able to do all of that work because of the enrichment that we're going to be doing on data that our customers upload into the platform as well. So just to reiterate there, yes, you can upload your own data. It doesn't work with Sidekick quite yet. It will be working with Sidekick here in a couple of months, and that's because, and frankly, this is an AI functionality too. We'll be able to, at scale, enrich our customers' data as they upload it with the same hierarchy that we use for our system data. How do we contrast ourselves to a competitor like PolicyMap? It's funny, I had an email from their CEO this morning. We like the PolicyMap team. They do a lot of incredible work. I think they are a little bit more present in higher education than we are, as an example. I think there are a lot of complementary ways that we work together. I would say that in particular, we've been very focused on building these kind of AI-centered tools. And so that's been a focus of our organization in the last year and a half. And I think that their CEO would say that's not where they've been focused as well. So I don't know, we do some similar things. We've had some different focus areas, and our customers don't actually overlap as much as you'd think. But I would say just in general, like their mission, they're on a similar track as we are, and we continue to try to find good ways to work complementarily with them. Hope that answered the question, Scott.
I had a question.
Yeah.
Do you have sources that are regional or state or city specific, or are most of your sources nationally representative?
Yes. And all of these questions are a lot of answers to. So in general, Amy, we've tried to keep like the city level data to the individual customer. So it'd be something that like would be in their account. And it's just because it's so different from place to place. There are a few things that we do at a slightly larger scale. As an example, some of you might know like BRFIS data, which is a state health data set. It looks a little different in every state, but there are similarities between the states. So we have some states like Florida as an example where we've tried to kind of like create a data layer for all of our customers that are in the state that have access to that state data layer. We're still not putting that in the general library. We kind of put it in an individual user library, and that's just from a findability standpoint. That's been the way that we've handled it. I would say though, Amy, the other search is just getting so much better using the tools that I've described too, because we could actually like give it all kinds of hints behind the scenes about when to use a data set and when not. So yeah, again, a long-winded answer. Usually we leave that to a customer to upload themselves, and we've tried to focus on having really broad access to the stuff that's available everywhere, and then building our own kind of data products on top of that.
Could I ask another question, please?
Yeah.
Yeah. Actually, two questions. How does your pricing structure look like? Do you have a demo account or like a let's try this out account? And also, so I work with both a mixture of public data but also really private data that needs to be kept in the data enclave. Would your product have a version that works within the data enclave? And I understand that with the large language model, it will have to be an offline large language model then.
Yeah, that's where it gets the stickiest. We have a fair number of, I would say, research teams, and they're at universities where it's more like there's a Snowflake instance or whatever, and all of our entire data library lives there, and then they're like matching it with patient record data or something like that. And so at that point, we're just like a really nice, structured data warehouse for them to be using in conjunction with their own data. So that's not atypical. It's not the way we work with most of our like local government customers. That's more for like research institutions. So that works. There is right now today, there is not like a on-site Sidekick that is able to access PII and HIPAA protected information in a reliable way. That's just not something that we've taken on. So I think it's definitely a roadmap, but in the shorter term, it's more likely we're going to be using like aggregate data sets that are uploaded into the platform. And so there'd be a handoff somewhere between like an aggregated data set and one that's got PII on it or whatever. So that'd be a little bit of like to be determined. You'd asked a question about licensing. Depends on who it is, but typically there's like an annual license, and there's a number of users for it. I'm building up to just giving you all Sidekick licenses, so love to have you just try it out for free, just trying it out. Typically, then there's a subscription that would give you access to the other stuff that I showed you before, in addition to Sidekick. And one of the things we're trying to do in the future is just to put Sidekick more. Have it seamlessly integrated with all of our functionality, not just having it be kind of like a standalone thing.
Okay. Thank you very much.
All right. Well, then I'll just get to sending you guys this invitation. Just kind of wrapping this up. I mean, we don't see AI tools working exceptionally well with unstructured data in the way that most people need it to work with unstructured data in the near term. And so our hypothesis has been, let's structure this data in a format that makes sense for community development work, and use that structure as a way to organize AI-ready data. So that if that's a problem that you're thinking about, that might be a place where we could continue the conversation. I talked a little bit about where we're going, and this is the whole idea here, is that we're going to be able to take our customers' data as well, enrich it in the same way that we've enriched our data library, and then provide access to the tools that we've got for anybody. This is probably not that applicable to this audience, honestly, but you're going to get this for free. This was part of the Department of Commerce talk, because a lot of the questions at the federal level, how should we structure our data to be AI ready? And the things that we've learned that we were trying to share were like, first, if you're using large language models, actually making sure that the headers are right and the metadata is robust, and you think through the purpose of the data and you have that all stored somewhere, and that it's actually human readable, it makes the data much more useful. That metadata, having really rich metadata, is the secret, because providing access to much more information about like margins of error and the source information and the way it was collected and what the frequency of update is. You can have all of that in the metadata, and then you can feed a tool like Sidekick because it knows to check that stuff. Another thing is just to think of your entire knowledge system as data. So as a planner, one of the ideas that I'm most in love with, which isn't probably going to be at this business, but somewhere down the line, is this, that, we build all of these incredibly in-depth, comprehensive plans all over the place, and they are written once and read never. And what a shame, because it takes like a year to do that work. So surely we're getting to a point where we're building models, and they're more like a Sidekick, where you say, okay, I'm applying for this development. What do I need to know? And that's fed by your entire comprehensive plan. It's fed by your zoning code. It's fed by the rules that you've built and the vision that you've built for a place, and it can react more real time to individual. How does this particular project interact with a comprehensive plan? So to get to that point, you just have to really think about even those organizing documents as data, and how can I store that data in a way that a future tool will be able to make use of it. I mentioned the evals and testing. That stuff is real work that's like the census department's gonna have to, the Department of Commerce, everybody's gonna have to think about, like, are they gonna be writing evals? Are we gonna be writing evals? Who gets to decide what's good enough from an evaluation standpoint when it relates to like bias that's in the numbers or in the responses? So it's just something that's a big topic to be figuring out. And then the number one question I get all the time from the data folks that are our customers is like, is this going to replace me? And the answer is no. It's going to change your work though. And the thing that I see most in the short term is a lot less time spent finding data and a lot more time explaining why it matters and how you should use it and the things that you probably don't think about asking if you're an armchair data analyst and you don't know to ask some of the questions that everybody on this call has learned over a couple of decades are really important. Those are my free advice here. All right, here we go. If you'd like to try out Sidekick, we'd love to have you do it. You can scan this QR code and then you just fill out a little web form, and we'll send you a license and you can check it out. Tell us what you think. Like, it's still in beta. It's been in beta for about 6 months now. It's gotten better and better. It still has good days and bad days. I was joking with Amy ahead of the call that it's like maybe it's better than I called it a middle schooler, but I've got a middle schooler, and I think it more closely resembles my high school student, where there are a lot of things that it does quite well. It definitely knows how to do college math, high school math better than I do, but there's still some things that it's learning and getting better at. So I'd be very curious to hear your thoughts. And I don't know, Zan, you might even, if you don't mind, I'm putting you on the spot here, but you told a little story right when we were jumping on the call about something that you'd done with Sidekick recently. You mind sharing that?
Not at all, Stephen. Thank you so much for this. So I've been beta testing this product for the last couple of months, and I think the first week was when the ACS poverty data came out and the new official CPS poverty data. And I was getting a ton of calls from people in our community here in Kansas on which measure to use, why are these different? And so I decided to ask Sidekick one day. I said, give me a table of the differences of the comparison. And I literally just typed CPS and ACS poverty measures. And it brought up a table explaining the sample sizes, the frequencies, which one was the official measure, which one, how many questions about income and poverty are in the CPS that are not in the ACS. I was really impressed because it saved me going and digging through all of the metadata behind both surveys and then summarizing it to answer the question that I had. So
awesome.
That was the case.
I love hearing that. Thank you for sharing that story too. All right, so you've got access to this. We could send it in a follow-up email to everybody as well. If you'd like to connect with me, here I am. That's my email address. That's my LinkedIn. I'd love to, we got a little bit more time for questions here if you have them, but some of you might have questions that are more specific to your organization. And I'd be delighted to hear from you about any of that stuff as well. So with that, I will stop sharing my screen again and see if there are any final questions before we wrap.
There's the long one in the chat.
Okay, I'll check that here. Yeah. Yeah. Yes, Michael, very much true. I guess this is, I had this question from a housing agency at a conference I was just at. And I guess, I don't know, maybe this is a cop out on my part. So take that with a grain of salt. I think that the problems that we will have by having more people with less experience have better access to data outweigh the education and the risks that we're going to have of people who don't really know how to interpret the data or who don't do all of the homework that you need to do in order to be able to feel really confident about it. I think that the cost benefit there is going to work out in our favor. And it's short and long term, like the views are a little bit different probably there. But we're already starting to think about how we can put more context about how you should use the data in the language model so that it could provide like real-time advice about what you need to think about next, some things that it like isn't so great at. So I'd just like to think that iteratively, that's a process that we can make better contributions to. I also think does come back to everybody who's working in the space, thinking about what is it unique. I mean, we're still the ones who are going to be answering the phone calls that Zan gets and helping people understand how to apply this stuff. And so thinking a little bit more about your role in that, I think is, I don't know, it's a work for 2025 at least. So I don't have there's no slam dunk answer to it, but that's how I think about the problem. Awesome. That's it for me. Anything else?
Anyone have any other questions or comments? All right. If not, I am sticking in the chat my hopefully accurate next AppDo webinars. Keep an eye on your newsletters, which are curated by other officers and board members that perhaps have better attention to detail than I. But we are so pleased that Stephen, you could join us today for our December webinar. This was great. I hope that anybody that goes in there and mucks around with this, if you want to tag us on LinkedIn with any comments that you have about this, I think it would help the community become more aware of this tool. And if you have any questions about it, I'm sure that Stephen would be able to hop in there and weigh in so that we can all learn more. If there are no other questions, Stephen, thanks so much for joining us. Zan, thanks for the hat tip, getting this on the AppDo radar. And thanks, everybody. And we'll see you in January.
Take care. Thanks for having me.
Thanks.
Thank you, Stephen.